ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. As Manja said, I stand here on this podium nostalgic because 16 years ago, we met in what looked like a cockpit or a small room downtown Cape Town. That is where it all began. I never imagined that a small meeting would multiply to this magnitude. The 2025 AMI is framed under the theme Energy Transition for Who? The critical question of our times. Jargon is used to explain the big shift from carbon to renewables, but little of this question asks about the consequences of the transition. The theme will provide for robust exchange in the 3 days. As a critical safe space, the AMI is expected to offer a catalyzing tool of trade to the communities faced with unmitigated resource plunder threatening their livelihood. We are charged with the difficult task of providing alternative solutions and building counterpower where necessary. The AMI is the pinnacle of African mining community solidarity in action, a protest action demanding real mineral transformation. 16 years back, I came from home called Luka, a village in the northwest province of South Africa under the Royal Bafokeng administration. A community that has long endured negative impacts of platinum mining in Rustenburg. I had difficulty explaining how the Royal Bafokeng model of community corporatization is unworkable with an institutionalized marginalization of local communities, undemocratic practices, and decision-making outsourced to small group of technocrats, or if you like, established elites. The model itself is worse than the disease it's supposed to cure. It further deepens inequality. At the risk of losing friends, I must say this, that proponents and hopefuls of the African mining vision want to convince me and my community that such discredited model forms the future of mineral realms benefits. By saying this, I'm in no way doubting the richness of AMV's contents. However, with my lived experience, I remain an unrepentant reader. I find comfort in Albert Camus' suggestion that rebellion is demand for clarity, an existential necessity. The contradiction within the AMV needs attention, especially if it has to be taken as a local or a Pan-Africanist product. Ali Mazrui warns us that intellectual acculturation ought not to be confused with ideological conversion. Ladies and gentlemen, AMI is taking place under a divine context and circumstances. Thus, we meet here as a movement cognizant of the difficulties facing us in achieving the total transformation of the extractive industry on the African continent. There is an overwhelming consensus among academics, think tanks, and powerful global institutions on this agenda. Yet, we are constantly confronted with continued obfuscation, tinkering, and reforming of old models. At the same time, we are also proud as the AMI to celebrate the sustained momentum of having told the alternative story of extractive over the last 15 years. In these 16 years, we are yet to test the genuineness of the industry to transform and prioritize unconditionally benefits and resource control to those at the receiving end, which is still a pipe dream though. All attempt to engage thus far have failed. Examples are too numerous to mention. But one example that stands out is the 10 years of engagement with the International Council on Mining and Metals, ICCMM, that came to naught I will come to this point later on. We are also outraged by the deliberate murders of artisanal and small-scale miners across the continent at the hands of the state apparatus and mining companies. The recent activities in Stilfontein, Northwest Province, South Africa, where scores of artisanal miners perished as a result of the implementation of Operation Valankoti, represent a dismal policy failure of government. Even more, this is an indictment on the ruling elite in this country and across Africa, and more so the SADC region, for paying lip service to the ideals of regional economic integration. The Stilfontein crisis is but a microcosm of how governments treat artisanal miners across the continent. It denies communities full benefits to their minerals, and this represents structural volumes of this system. Many regimes unleash brutal force on artisanal miners and lynch them daily, justifying this as a crime-busting campaign. The crime here is for them to support their livelihood, whilst covering for kingpins. The current South African state's forgetfulness or amnesia of the historic institutionalized migrant labor system, which birthed the problem and is recreating itself years after a generation of miners, is puzzling and absurd. This system is now at the whim of criminal syndicates who are ahead of state intelligence, if not in collaboration. We have set sight to scenes of horror and